Okay, we did it. Victoria, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
It was a little bit of a moopy start, but so far it's been fun to talk to you. And I know that you have written your own books, so you're an author, but you also help authors write their books, and particularly you have an interest in memoir
Correct.
writing. So why don't you start off by letting me know how you transitioned from writing your own stuff to helping other people write their stuff?
Well, it was really a journey of one. I mean, I was writing my journals, which turned into three books, memoir books. And when I published them, I didn't really expect anybody to read them, to be honest. Unlike the bestseller, I'm like, I don't think my story is going to be a bestseller, but you never know, right? So I was taken back by how many people who read my book, both people I knew, people I didn't know, coming to me and say, "This is really inspiring. I want to do this too." It's kind of like on my bucket list. And from that, I started some coaching and specifically memoir. Now, I have written all my life, whether it be short stories, I actually did some short scripts, some fiction here and there. But really, the memoir is what kind of unfolded, and I just worked with it. Now, for me, the memoir is not only about your story as a person who has something interesting to share. I mean, there's great rewards in memoir writing as far as, that's going to be your legacy. From my experience, I didn't realize that a lot of my family history was not revealed to other family members. So through me and telling my story, I was able to capture family history that may have been lost. And now it's permanently recorded. So long after we're all gone, our family members down the line can read the story about people they never knew, stories they might be inspired or it's something they can relate to. Um, but really, that's kind of how it started. But as I got into a little bit more in the networking circles, I realized that the memoir is really kind of underappreciated and underused. As authors, we are businesses. Our books are our byproduct, and we're technically the company. And there are people who want to know the story behind the storyteller, to compare their values, to find out what inspired them to write a certain genre, or maybe some back history on some of the characters. I know for me, you know, I am now writing a fiction book based on some of my memoir stories. And I'll be able to lead my readers from memoir into fiction, fiction back in. So if they want to know what the real story was behind some of these fiction characters, there's kind of a cross meshing. But ultimately, you are your brand. And writers, we write. We don't want to be in the limelight. That's why we write, right? We don't want to be in the front of the camera. We kind of are private people.
We're
But
closet performers.
yeah, so that's why we write. Our power is in our written word, not necessarily our spoken or personal presence. But really, that's such a missed opportunity because the writing market is incredibly competitive. So in order for you to kind of stand out and have that little bit of leverage over other authors maybe in your genre, is to think about again, telling the story behind your story, and having them know a little bit about yourself. I know there's some authors that did podcasts with and networked with. They spend a lot of money on professional background. Hello, look at mine. I do that intentionally. The background behind me is all personal. It tells a personal story. I was an antique dealer for 20, still kind of am. I still my husband, but if you look here, let me move that. There is a
Mhm.
130-year-old settee, and actually I can't seem to, there we go. I'm just going to cover it this way because I'm not very coordinated. But the desk in the corner is again, like 100 and probably 140-year-old English writing desk. And when I saw that, I was like, gotta have it because it's a
Awesome.
writer's desk. And of course, my bookcase again is 100-year-old, 120-year-old bookcase of the arts and crafts movement. It has little carved knob, anything with like rivets or knobs on it. I'm there. I don't care how much it costs. Gonna be mine. But that's all part of me. The dream catcher, if you read any of my books, the importance of dreams have been in inspiring me to write. It was all because of a dream that really prompted me to take writing seriously. So, and then of course, the tile is my Aries sign. So it's all part of me. And I'm not just, for me, I want to invite my readers in to know a little bit about me. And that's why I keep it very low tech, not sophisticated. And I mean, I suggest that doing with other writers who want to invite their readers in to get a little know of them, get curious about, what makes them tick, what inspires them, what uninspires them, what they're afraid of. What are some of their fears? What are some of their doubts that they have as a writer?
I think you've just lit a match in my brain. I was not expecting this talk to be for me, but
Okay.
I can see how this would work for a fiction writer
Hmm.
who, instead of performing on TikTok and being vulnerable on social media, you can be vulnerable in your
Yes.
memoir and talk about why your writing is so funny or dark or whatever it is.
Right. And
And
yeah.
I didn't really think of it that way. I thought you need to be established and have some seniority to write this awesome book and like have some cool backstory where you were in prison to write this memoir, but it could just be about your process. And you remind me of Laura Lippman, this this crime thriller writer who wrote a memoir called My Life as a Villainess, I believe.
Mm.
And I read it because I read her books, and she didn't need to be a celebrity or anyone other than a writer to for me to enjoy the book and just learn why she writes these
Exactly.
dark books. I love that.
Hmm. And it doesn't have to even necessarily be a written book. I mean, audiobooks, record an MP3 of little segments here and there. I mean, this is going to give you the competitive edge over, your indifference. I mean, right now in the sea of competition, your greatest obstacle is going to be indifference. Nobody really knowing, not only knowing you, but knowing about you. So you bring in the essence of your why ultimately. In the business world, we always talk about why, but writers, you need to share your why too. And that's great way is through the memoir writing, or audio book, or even MP3 recordings. That's something that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing little snippets of my chapters. I'd share excerpts from my book with a little photograph of either something actually from that time period, because I threw out nothing, to be honest. If it has a good story, it's never going in the trash ever, regardless. But there's something very powerful about reading your own material in your own voice. On some of my podcasts, I had two of my guests. One was a fiction, one was a memoir, and the power that I felt coming through was just amazing. And I thought, I need to do that. I need to do that and do it often. Because although audiobooks, I know there's some school of thought, oh, you shouldn't do it in your voice. I think do it in your voice, good, bad, or indifferent, because again, that's going to level up your person to person, connection with your readers. They get to hear your own story told in the author's voice and the way the author intended to put those little accents there or emphasis. It's very
How how authentic are we talking? Not cutting out any of the gasping for air and swallowing, or just
well, if
go
you
for it?
yeah, if you do, yeah, I mean, you can put, where when you're writing what the energy was in that
Mhm.
moment, and what you sometimes that is lost in the interpretation of people reading, and doing your audiobooks. Um, so it's something to consider.
Okay, so in terms of getting it all out, I guess memoir, this is for anybody. You can be fiction, nonfiction, a health coach, a
Correct.
business
Mhm.
coach.
Yes.
And so when we try to get it out, is there something different about writing memoir that we need to know? It's or is it just be authentic and get it onto paper?
If you read any of my memoirs, I get pretty real. And people who read them are kind of shocked at, because I include all the emotion, and I keep it real. I don't sugarcoat anything. If family member was horrible to me, they get to be horrible in my book. Husband was horrible to me, they get to be horrible in my book. The big joke is you don't want to be a bad chapter in my book. Stay on
Mhm.
the good side, right? Because it's in the moment. And I think, sometimes it's memoirs, and I will be honest, memoirs, especially if you had a lot of personal tragedy or disappointment, those are really hard to get through, because you relive that experience. But the other byproduct of a memoir book is it's incredibly cathartic. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And you realize no matter how horrible whatever you went through, you got out and you did okay. You're writing about it. Now you will relive those, but the same time that you're reliving there, you release whatever you'd feel. I mean, it took me 3 months just to stop crying, to start, to get get through like the first 10 pages.
Aw.
So yeah, you will have that, but I recommend keeping it real, because memoirs also serve another unique purpose that I didn't realize, is that sometimes when you're in a hot mess, you think you're the only one going through it. And when you find somebody who's been there, done that, especially in like abusive relationships, you're not really sure. You lose yourself. You don't not only lose yourself, but you lose how you feel about how you should feel in that situation, how you should be reacting, how, what's okay. And one of the things that came out of my memoirs is, I totally related. I didn't know if that was okay to feel like that or think that way. And thanks to your book, I feel like I'm okay. That was an appropriate reaction.
So how about I have a great aunt. She's 100 years old,
Oh
and
wow.
she lives in Santa Barbara, and she writes creative stories.
Mm,
Her and my grandma both will confess that they can't write their own stories. Like they have secrets they can't tell
mhm,
the world. And I feel like I have a lot of people in my life who are like that, where they're brave because they have all these secrets that, like, who knows what they've done. But at the same time, what would you tell someone like that who wants to hold it in and take it to the grave versus share it with the world?
I think that with that, um, I think you want to present the secret, but you want to not necessarily sugarcoat it, but don't focus on it. Focus on what was some of the benefits of maybe, dealing with it, or I don't know, not dealing with it. Um, so when I write about my what I call my villains, those are the people who get the naughty chapters, right? Yeah. What I do is I kind of go into not so much what the transgression or the trauma was, but I just focus on what my feelings were, because this is your story, not necessarily their story. And if you have a dark secret, I mean, I talk about one of my friends in elementary school that I know she was being molested by her uncle. Every single teacher in that school knew she was being molested by her uncle.
Wow.
And I didn't go into I kind of dipped into it, but I go into, that really left a perception in my mind as a child that adults are supposed to help children, and they weren't. And the only hero in that story was kind of my mom. She didn't want to talk about it either. But what she did is, there was there was actually two classmates. One was being molested, one was being beaten. She had bruises. So my mom, trying to deal with, I don't know how to deal with a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, how to explain the horrors of the world like this. So what she did is she had me pack like extra food for them, or little extra toys in my lunchbox to give to them. So I talk about not so much the horrors of what's going on, but what I did, what I thought, what I felt, and what was at my disposal to help people who weren't being helped, who needed to be helped.
That's lovely.
Mhm.
So I'm really happy that I didn't send an e-blast. I was gonna let everyone know this is for nonfiction authors only, and I was so wrong. It's for everybody. Um, and you have something that I wanted to talk about before you leave us, and that is you want to talk about take the leap and start your writing journey. How do we do that? And what do you have that can help us do that?
I do. Well, I have quite a few resources. You can watch the Leap Into Your Story podcast. I have the Leap Into Your Story Creative Collective Facebook group, but I also have a writer's toolkit that you can find at the website at leapintoyourstory.com/gifts. And there are some mini courses talking about the fears that keep you from writing, as well as a writer's checklist to help you build the confidence.
That's amazing. And this is completely free.
Completely free.
Awesome. I think I'm going to take it. Yeah. I'm going to take the leap and I'm going to take the course.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Victoria. This was eye-opening,
Okay.
truly.
I'm glad. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.